Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome back to the PorscheCooled Podcast. I'm Michael Barth. No messing around today. I'm going to go straight into it. I'm going to get Steve on Zoom, and we're going to start chatting all things Porsche. This is Friday's episode, as you know. Steve is logging on to Zoom now. I just got his little message pop up. So let's just get Steve and let's just get straight into it. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Steve is here. I can hear him clicking away on his keyboard. Hi, Steve.
Yeah, sorry, I'm super random this week. Hi, mate. See? Just talking without saying hello first.
Say hello to the listeners. They miss you.
I'm officially all over the shop, so the listeners could possibly get the shits, but whatever.
I'm actually...
The listeners?
The listeners. Is that what we call? We'll just say you guys. I'd always say you guys or the listeners. So I'm back in Bahrain. Steve knows that. I don't know if you guys know that, but I'm back in Bahrain. I'm a bit out of sorts, Steve, because I've got this different microphone stand and you can't see my face anymore because it covers my face. And it's not the one I use in London that I bought. And the one in London is so much better. And now I can't see my screen to look at my reference material.
I can see your shoulders nicely.
Yeah, I know, which is why I just knocked out my microphone. We just had a bit of a technical difficulty, Steve and I. We had to start again. So, Steve, what's happening? Why are you so flustered?
Just massive work day. All these jobs kind of coming in at the same time. People wanting
lots
things
of
with
money.
No, not lots of money, just lots of work.
New 911, new Porsche, new Mazda Miata, MX-5.
There's too many other things going on that will not lead to anything fun like that. One day.
If the listeners don't already know, Steve's not having it, but Steve's wife is about to have a baby in a month's time. Is that right, Steve? A month?
Yeah, talk about stress.
Yeah, so he's a little bit stressed because he's gonna have two children.
Yeah, laugh it up. Two children, trying to work from home. It's all hell's gonna break loose.
I laugh with concern, Steve. I don't laugh in jest. I laugh in concern.
I'm sure everybody, like pretty much everybody that's kind of gone through it, just says, "Yeah, it just works. Don't worry about it." It's like, yeah, I'm sure it does, but it's hard not to.
The second one is easy though, right? Because you've already had one, so the second one's easy. You know what to do.
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't. Yeah, I actually don't know. There's people that sort of say like that the second one isn't twice the work, but then pretty much most of the friends that I sort of trust and I'm more aligned with kind of went, "Nah, that's horseshit." Like,
don't believe it. Don't believe it.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. So I don't know. Right. Whatever.
So that's what's happening. That's why Steve's a bit all over the place because he's making heaps of money and he's having another baby.
It's just the latter bit.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. Like I said, you know who I am. That's Steve. Steve's in Sydney. If this is the first time you're joining the podcast, welcome. I hope you've listened to other episodes before because you might listen to this one and think, okay, I'm not coming back. But please listen to the other episodes.
Who are these idiots?
Yeah, if this is the first time you've listened to the podcast, please listen to the other episodes because this one might be a little bit random. I just want to touch on the usual things, Steve. Yeah, so I flew back before I get into that, as you know, I flew back into Bahrain on, what day is it? On Saturday. So we flew out of Heathrow, flew out of London. When I checked in, Steve... no, it was okay. It was actually okay. Yeah. When I checked in, I actually asked the guy at the counter, and there was only 46 people on the flight. And this is on a Dreamliner, a new Boeing plane that Gulf Air fly with. There was only 46 people, so it was really, really empty.
So without sounding funny, does it make you nervous to kind of fly given just all the kind of shit that's going on in the UK and all that?
In some ways, I feel more comfortable being out of the UK at the moment.
Yeah, that's what I thought. The act of actually having to get out, is that still...
I don't know. I don't think it's that big a deal. I mean, it's quite scary because we fly out of Terminal 2 in London, and Terminal 2 is always a terminal we used to fly out of for Singapore Airlines to go back to Sydney, so it's always a bit weird that way. But it's so dead. We've been to that terminal so many times, the 4 or 5 flights back to Australia we used to do a year, and it's just so dead, that terminal. It's scary. And there's no shops open because the shops in the airport can't open either.
Yeah.
So there's only
course.
takeaway coffee shops open, which is the same as in, central London, basically.
Yep.
So that was interesting. Flight was really fast. They were actually 40 minutes early, probably because the plane was so light. There was no wait.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's one of the first flights, Steve, that we actually took off. It was supposed to leave at 9:30 in the morning, and it left. We were like taxiing down the runway at 9:30 in the morning. So it was it was super, super quick. And then apart from that, it was easy. When you arrive in Bahrain, you get tested. You get the stick up your nose.
You got the stick?
Got the stick. They moved the position of it though. They put the position in the old
What?
arrivals.
Up your ass?
No. Where they actually where they actually Steve, don't swear. Yesterday I'm going to diverge here. Yesterday, the podcast, I usually share the podcast on Instagram through Spotify because it allows me to share directly to Instagram. It wasn't on Spotify. I'm freaking out. I'm thinking they've banned us because Steve swore in the last episode and I didn't think it was explicit. That's what I was thinking. And then it came up on Apple and I thought, okay, it's up on Apple, so it's okay. And then I didn't realize there was a big outage in the US yesterday with Spotify, Amazon, Google.
Oh, okay.
Some big outage.
And you're going to blame me.
Yeah, I thought it was your fault. I was blaming you. I was saying, fuck, Steve, seriously.
And now you just messed up this one.
Anyway, back to Bahrain. Yeah, so it was okay. Had the test, negative, came through in 6 hours to test, and now we've got another 10 days for an exit test, so then we have that. We have the opportunity to get the vaccination here because we're Bahraini residents. They do the vaccination and it's happening quickly. I think they're more organized than any other country in the world, but Bahrain's only got, 1.5, I think it's 1.5 million. I hope I'm not wrong. I think it's 1.5 million people. So you get the choice of the Chinese one or the Pfizer one or whatever it's called. Pfizer.
Yep. Pfizer.
So people say don't get the Chinese one. Sinopharm or whatever it's called. Because the Sinopharm one's not reliable. So, it's in our mind. It's in our mind because Tasha's father's sister died of coronavirus in Ireland last week.
Yeah, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, so, and
very sad.
her funeral was day before yesterday. And unfortunately, it had to be streamed. It was like a streamed funeral, which was really distressing. And people couldn't really go. And her neighbors came out and the son couldn't even go. It's really terrible.
Horrible.
When you see that side of the story, and it's really upsetting. I mean, I only met her a couple of times, but it's really, really upsetting. Anyway, on to other things. Apple loves us at the moment, Steve, and it loves us because all of our listeners are giving us reviews and ratings and all the things that I asked for. They've been doing it. So thank you very much for that.
Is it more swearing? Do they want more?
No, there's no more things about swearing. We've got a couple of reviews. I don't know if I'll read them. Love the podcast, keep them coming. That was from Charfinch69 in Great Britain. And then the other one was just titled Super podcast, great chat about Porsche. Would love to hear more about the Cayman from Montreal. That was Alex LAF in Canada. We've got our owner stories coming up.
Owners?
Yeah, I haven't had any. Actually, I have had somebody, I think, just recently. Someone has approached me, I think, who's got a Cayman and something else. But I have just done a PorscheCooled owner stories, which is coming up in the next couple of weeks, which is a Boxster, 981 Boxster owner from Australia. So that's coming up, Stephen. That's coming up in the next couple of weeks. So there is a Boxster story in there. Like I said, when we started Owner Story, Steve, we always wanted to have a bit of variety. It wasn't we didn't call it 911 Owner Stories. We called it PorscheCooled Owner Stories because it's about any type of Porsche that you own. Correct?
Until they come and see your ass, but yeah.
Yeah. So what was I saying? Yeah. So we have a Boxster one coming up, which is a good one. I've already recorded that. And hopefully some Cayman owners will approach me and we can do a Cayman PorscheCooled owner story as well. On Apple Podcasts as well, Steve, I wasn't going to mention this, but I mentioned it because I was listening to, I'm catching up on the old Spike's Car Radio. I don't listen to them in London because in London I was a lazy ass and I didn't exercise at all. In Bahrain, I actually go to the gym every day or I run. I either go to the gym or I do a 7K run. So in that, I always listen to my podcast. So I've started to listen to Spike again, and he was mentioning they were number one in some bizarre countries. Obviously, Huh?
Nepal.
That's right. Nepal. Was that
It was
for real?
Nepal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I thought I'd tell the listeners that the top 6 countries on Apple podcast charts. So this is for automotive podcasts. This is out of all automotive podcasts, everyone that says they're an automotive podcast, this is the rating. And it changes regularly. It changes weekly or, by day or, every second or third day or something. I think it depends. We've been number 2 in Malaysia for some time. We were actually number 1 there for a bit. Now we're number 2. We're number 7 in Norway. Nordic countries like us. We're quite high up in Sweden as well. We're number 12 in France, Steve.
They like the swearing. Yep.
Yeah. We're number 15 in Italy. We're number 25 in Great Britain, which makes me happy. Actually, Australia should have been before because we're number 20 and number 21 in Australia, which is quite high for Australia. The one I'm a bit upset about is we're not high in the US, even though most of our viewers are from the US. We vary in the US. I think the highest we've been in the US is about 45 or 50, I think.
You need to pull some pretty large audience to kind of rate highly, wouldn't you? There's so many Americans.
Yeah, you do. But when you think about it, the American podcasts are in these Norway charts and everything, Spike and everything. We're ahead of them in these countries. So we appeal to certain countries, but obviously in America, I guess the American podcasts are higher rating. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Thought the listeners might be interested in hearing that, and you as well, Steve. Patreon is where we get the support for the podcast. As you know, this podcast doesn't have any sponsors. Probably because we haven't been approached by any sponsors, and I haven't actually approached anyone to get sponsors.
It could be that.
my wife Natasha says that I should be out there trying to get sponsors for the podcast. I said if she'd like to do it, she can do it for me. So we'll see what happens with that, Steve.
Is that in all seriousness? Is that an actual ambition? We've never talked about that.
We haven't really talked about it, no. But I guess, most people do this for money. We do it for our passion. We do it for our, we're enthusiasts and we're passionate, and this is what we do it for.
Yeah, somebody who I'm just getting work for is a specialist in podcasts. So I've only just thought of this. Well, I actually did think about it when he told me. It's like, oh, yeah, okay.
Oh, did you tell him you do it?
Get some tips if he wanted to get more professional.
Did you tell him you're a podcast host?
No, I did not.
Because that's what you are, right? You know in your LinkedIn profile now you can say podcast host.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
You're getting
I'm a podcast guest, aren't I?
No, you're a host. You're not a guest. What are you talking about?
I don't know.
You're not a guest. You're a host. Anyway, so Patreon is where we get the support for the podcast. It's where we, can buy equipment. It's just to keep us talking, basically. That's what I always say. It's to keep us talking. We've got 2 new members this week, and a big shout out to these 2 people because I know both of them. Jack, I'll mention is the first one. Jack is at sunburn_lobster_911. Have a look at Jack's Instagram at sunburn_lobster_911. Jack is going to be on next week's Owner Stories. He's got a really good story. He's actually mates with Nick, who owns the 912, who I spoke with a little while back on Owner Stories, Steve. And
does this mean he drives a Tangerine something or other?
I sent you the link, right? That Jack had put out, the post he put on piston heads with the interior, with the lobster interior. Yeah, I sent it to you. I sent it to you before I spoke to Jack. Yeah, I sent it to you. You never look at anything. I don't know. I send you this stuff and you never look at it.
I'm a guest.
So thanks, Jack, for joining. I've already told Jack thanks, but you can say thanks as well, Steve.
I did. Thanks, Jack.
And then we've got Mark. Everyone knows Mark. Mark is from Mark and Cars. Mark's got that really beautiful 356, who was also on a previous Owner Stories. Mark joined PorscheCooled Exclusive as well. And I want to give Mark a bit of a shout out because Mark and I talk occasionally, but Mark has got a podcast that he's just started, Steve, called Classic Prattle, which is a good name. And that's on, I think the first episode is up. It's up on Apple, Podbean, Google, I think the usual places like our podcasts. So go and give Mark some support. Go and listen to his podcast. He's just started first one. It's not easy. It's not easy to start a podcast. So all the support will help him out there.
Is it Porsche only, or is it?
I think it's
classic in general.
I think it's classic in general. I don't think it's just Porsche. I think it's more it could be more in general. It's probably Porsche, more Porsche-centric. He did
Centric,
say it wasn't the same as our podcast, so I think it's more about classics.
Nothing is like this podcast, mate.
What are you saying? What are you saying?
I'm saying it's unique.
I'm just checking down to make sure I'm recording. I don't know where I am today. I feel like I'm not even recording this or not talking. This microphone is throwing me off today, this stand, I tell you. I don't know where. I can't get comfortable. Every time I bend down, I've got a baseball cap on, as you can see. Every time I bend down, it keeps hitting the microphone. Yeah, so check that out. Classic Prattle, that's Mark. And yeah, that's about it for that one. PorscheCooled owner stories. I know you haven't listened to it, Steve, because I know you've been really busy.
No, I did.
Oh, you did listen to it?
Yeah, while I was working today.
And?
It's good. It's really good.
Wow, that's a lot of enthusiasm there. Sorry, Kestas. Steve is normally more enthusiastic than this. So this week's owner's story was Kestas from Italy. When I spoke to Kestas, he was in Lithuania, actually, because he's home. He's got a home in Lithuania as well, I think. I really enjoyed talking to Kestas. He's really, he made me smile during that whole owner story. He really did. We did it on an afternoon. I think it was an afternoon before Christmas in London. And it's a great story. And the bit I like the best is the fact that he bought it from a dealer in Germany. He flew there.
And drove home.
He test drove it with a dealer. I think he says it in the story, right? He test drove it on the Autobahn so he could just, floor it, which is
see what happens.
Pretty amazing test drive experience. And then he takes a long way home back to Italy through the Alps. And they're all those great photos. The photo that I put on the thumbnail for the podcast and the photo that's going to be on the thumbnail for the YouTube version of his podcast. Are all photos through that drive back through Italy. And I put another one on.
Pretty rare car, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a pretty rare car, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. The 997.
Certainly not that many of them.
No, the 997, Steve. The 997, it's a really nice car. The 997.2 Carrera 4 GTS.
Yep.
Right? And his spec, when he first sent me the photo ages ago, his spec, I think, is just perfect on that car. It's got carbon ceramics. It's got the black wheels with the silver lip, the tan interior with the black. There is something really nice about black cars with tan interior. I think, for me, the only exterior color that I would accept a tan interior is on a black car. It just works. Or maybe the dark blue, the midnight blue.
Yeah, I'm still not a massive fan of tan, but I wouldn't say no. My uncle's 901.2 came with a tan interior on night blue. Quite like that. I was surprised. I thought I wouldn't like it, but it's nice.
It's just that compared to, say, a silver, Arctic silver or GT silver 911 with tan, which doesn't look terrible, but for me it looks a bit washed out. It's a bit too subtle. You know what I mean? There's not enough contrast between the two colors. I like it when there's a big contrast between the exterior and the interior, and I think that's why the tan with the black or the tan with the midnight blue. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But Kestas's car, if you haven't listened to that owner story, take a listen. It's a really good one. Like I said, Carrera 4 GTS, really well optioned. He went there to buy a 4S. He went to the showroom. He went to buy a 4S, which was a lower kilometer car. And in the corner of his eye, he saw the center lock wheels, and he saw this GTS and a Carrera 4 GTS. So he actually decided on that one. But I think he's got.
Bet you that happens all the time.
Yeah.
When you're a dealer and people kind of wander in with something in mind, but there's other sort of things to kind of distract people.
Yeah, and this dealer in Germany, it only sells Porsche. It only sells used Porsche. Specializes in it. Yeah. So it was actually a pretty. I can't remember the name of the company. He did mention it. But even though they had a good rep, he still checked them out. He still checked the Google reviews and made sure they had reasonable reviews and everything. But he got a great car. It's a really good story. Really. Yeah, like I said, he was infectious. He was so happy, and he was so, he loves the car so much, and, really nice guy. So really good story. So check that out. You can look at his Instagram as well. It's at 9 written out, NINE, .7, SEVEN. So check out Kestas's Instagram. He's got some great photos of his car from that trip back through Switzerland and some other ones. And also one where he parked on the street in Rome, which is the one I was distressed about, Steve.
Yeah, I've not been, but I understood what you were sort of saying. It
I would
sounds
never
a bit.
park my I would never park my 911 in the street in Rome.
I like parking my car in Wallara and Sydney, let alone.
So what else has been happening, Steve? Give me something. How was the your mate with his GT3? He was getting it serviced, right? Was that fully done?
Fully done. It was in the shop for a whole week, I think. Monday, dropped in on a Monday, picked it up on the Saturday morning. He was just chit-chatting with me along the way, just asking me stuff. So his car checks out. The Indy mechanic, a German guy, what's his name? Andre? Can't remember. Sorry, I'm going to get it wrong, so I won't name his name. Said that it was a great car, no sort of major issues, went through it like completely, changed out all the fluids, inclusive of gearbox, electric transmission, oil, checked everything out. Sent it out to a suspension specialist to do a geo setup. East Coast Suspensions in, where are they? They're sort of down southish. I've heard of them before. I've never used them. What's the guy's name there? David. David apparently reset the whole thing up, took the spacers off. There were spacers on this car, which he recommended against. So I think they got removed. And
so he would have had to buy new bolts then?
No, I think it came in. I think my mate said that it came with a bag of bolts as well. Because he came with two sets of wheels, one standard set of just the kind of standard GT3 wheels like mine, and then we can't figure out what the aftermarket, another sort of set of aftermarkets, and one set of Trofeo R's and one set of Michelin Cup 2s like mine. So he tried them both, and he's on the aftermarkets with the Cup 2s on it, and now he's taken the spacers off.
Okay, but you said he preferred the R tyres better, didn't he? Didn't you say you preferred the R tyres?
Well, look, I was just curious because, like, R tyres are proper, full-on. Trofeo R's are, full track tyres. And I remember my first drive of a GT3, it's like, man, this thing's so grippy. It's so sticky compared to just anything else that I've driven, including, like four-wheel drive, WRXs and S3s and all of that sort of thing. And I think I put it down to the tyres because I'd never driven a car on semi-slicks. My car came fitted with Pirelli Corsas. Well, you might sort of equate it too. Like, remember when you jumped in my car and you filmed it? That feeling of grip that you the difference between your car and my car?
No, it feels sticky. I don't know how it can feel sticky when you're driving it, but there's some different feeling of the tires where you feel like it's almost like, and I'm doing my hand movement with Steve again. Yeah. It's like you're flat on you sit in the car and the tires just go, I'm sticking like jelly. You know what I mean? Like a melted ice cream. It's like you feel like you're on the tarmac. I don't know. It's a weird feeling.
You just don't have to, you can brake so much later into a corner and you can just go, it feels like you can go around a corner without lean and all of that sort of stuff, blah, blah, blah. So that was my impression of going from a standard tire to what was a Pirelli Corsa, which is the equivalent of a Cup tire. So then I just assumed that the step change for my mate from going from a Cup 2 to a Trofeo R might be similar. So I was really curious to find out if that's how he felt about it. And it sounds a little bit like the answer is yes, like it's noticeably stickier. But he sort of said that he didn't mind the Cup 2s on the street and, he was enjoying it. So
here's a question for you. Could I get the Cup 2s on my car?
Yeah, of course you can.
So why wouldn't I get Cup 2s? What is that overkill to have Cup 2s on a 997 Carrera?
Depends on your usage. No, not at all.
But if it improves your driving experience, if it makes the driving experience that little bit better and you don't drive the car as a daily, because Cup 2s don't last as long, right? They don't last as long as a normal, probably like my PS2s that I have on it.
Yeah, no, they'll wear much quicker because it's a softer compound. Like, of course you can, but the interesting thing about that, because this is just like, layman hypothesis kind of thing, just an everyday person as opposed to somebody that does track time, is that because I'd never experienced it before, I put a lot of that kind of the feeling of grip down to the tires as opposed to the car. I still think that you would have to kind of drive really hard to kind of get anywhere close to the limits of the car on, standard tires, let alone cup tires, let alone then going to Trofeo R's. You need to be on a track to do all of that stuff. Like, you're never going to pick it on the street.
True.
But
true.
I'm assuming, I don't know, you'll have more knowledgeable people listening to this than me. Like, my guess is that, for sure, you could put Cup 2s on your car and it'd be awesome. But would it be worth it?
Yeah. If anyone's listening and they've got Cup 2 tires or R-Spec tires on their base Carrera, let me know. I'd be interested to know what they're like, if anyone's done it. Probably no one's done it, though. I don't know if anyone would have done it, unless they're doing track days.
Yeah, no, people will have done it. So, because I'm considering, like I've babbled on before, about going the opposite way. Like, my next tires, maybe I won't replace them with Cup 2s and put PS4Ss on it, but I believe when you kind of read about it that 4S's kind of dry grip is actually really high as well, like just because tire technology is kind of moving so quickly. So
yeah. What else, mate?
So my mate's happy. He's a very happy camper. His car's good. He spent a bit of money.
A lot of money? A lot of money, I bet.
Pretty big bill, but, like in the same shoes as him, I'd do exactly the same because the car's new to him. He's kind of reset everything, so he's got an absolute kind of baseline where he knows exactly what's been done to it. And, hopefully the next few years, like he just does the alternate minor service, major service, and he's kind of all sort of set up and good.
Yeah, it's true. Good one.
He's talking a lot about mods already.
Really?
But,
exhaust mod.
We'll see.
Oh, he's got an exhaust already, hasn't he? Interior leather mods, right?
Yeah, or pretty much all of that sort of stuff.
Give him Linus's details.
Why, so he can... I won't say that.
I just remembered the other day. It's like, it's the end of January. I was telling Nick actually about it in the UK. End of January. I haven't heard from him. Where's my sunroof part? Oh, man.
So you haven't heard?
No.
Is Nick happy with the bits that he got?
Nick still hasn't paid for the bit that I had Tasha's brother send from Australia that ended up in Australia. He hasn't paid for it.
But he's got it.
I've paid for mine.
Installed
he hasn't paid for his.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
What else?
Despite the shenanigans, he's happy with the actual kind of product, right?
But no, Nick's going to get more things done. I mean, you can't fault the quality. The quality is good, right? It's the other side of it, which is not. I hope he doesn't listen to this because I really do respect him and I think he's a good guy and he does a great job. But communication side of it, not 100%. Exhaust, mate. Exhaust.
You're probably missing out on the good part of it because you've dealt with all of that stuff, but you actually haven't had a chance to touch the parts and install it on your car and all of that. So
this is what I'm saying. This is what the problem is that I've got all those parts sitting in a box, which Tasha's brother was at our place. Yeah, Tasha's brother was at our place and said, "Oh, here's your box of Porsche parts." It's like, yeah, thanks. You know what I mean? Like, they're just sitting there, and it's like, yeah, I wish I could actually see them. You know what I mean? And I just want to see them to make sure they're okay. I'm sure they're okay. I did mention this before, but the inner leather door sill looks a little bit strange. The inside of it, because I think it's Alcantara on the inside. It's not full leather. He's put Alcantara on the inside of it.
Oh, okay. It's interesting.
Yeah,
Why?
I know. That's what it looks like. It looks like it's got Alcantara. I don't know why it wouldn't be full leather, because I know yours from Exclusive Option are full leather.
Yeah, it is. You're talking about the face that sort of...
Inner door sill, the thing where the umbrella goes in and the other thing goes in.
There's a little rubber thing that goes inside that.
There's rubber on the bottom. There's a rubber pad.
Yeah.
But
you just pull it out.
But the sides of that cavity, I think it look like they're Alcantara.
That's weird if you put a wet umbrella in it. Yeah,
I know. I mean, I could be wrong, but they look like they were Alcantara.
Okay.
It's definitely not the same leather as the outside, so I don't know. I mean, it's too late now. Whatever.
Yep.
Sell it to you, mate. I'll sell it to you, mate, for $700. Ask him if he wants any leather parts, and I'll sell it to him. They're like $1,300 on exclusive option. I think $1,300 US.
Just save it up for your GT3, mate. Just get your GT3 and all these bits that you can sort of swap them over.
I ain't got no money. Got no money left. It's all gone. I'm not going to say where it's gone. Steve knows where it's gone, but I've got no money left.
Yeah. People don't need to know about that, mate.
Next, the exhaust tips. Did you get the? You're going to get them resurfaced or something, right?
Yeah, I've got Sharkworks style exhaust tips, just the black things. Every time I go visit my folks, they kind of get a bit scraped on the back underside of it because of the driveway, even with the lift and all that sort of stuff.
You need to slow down when you go in the driveway.
It's got nothing to do with speed, mate. It's called living in Sydney. So I took them off and found a place that do ceramic coating. So just I've actually got 2 pairs of tips and just sort of thought stuff it, give it to the guy and let him recoat them and see how it turns out.
Right. Hey, I had a message on Instagram DM. I just mentioned this quickly. We're not going to go through it in depth today, but I had a message from Matau. I think it's Matau. Sorry, Matau, if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. He just asked me, Matthew? Is it? No, it's Matau. Isn't it French? It looks French to me. Anyway, I always get these names wrong, so I apologize. He just sent a message, which I read out to you before, about, he's wanted to know where we think the 997 Turbo sits and, between the base Carrera and the Carrera GT cars in terms of value experience. And he said he's debating whether to get back into a base Carrera or 4S 997.1 or a turbo. Obviously, there's value in the base 997.1, but turbo is a turbo. Yep, I agree with that.
Does that imply that he's had a 911 before?
He must have. I'm not 100% sure. But, for me, a 997, I'll be honest, and Steve's going to cringe when I say this. I've been looking at 991.1 Turbo S's online. Okay. I've been distracted because I found one on car sales and it was like 250,000 Australian dollars for a Turbo S in white. Mm-hmm. Cheapest one I found, because normally they're in the 300s, right? And there's one for sale in Queensland for, it's 250K, and it's amazing. It's got no kilometers. But then I thought, hey, the 997.1 turbo is really, really good. Is it really hard to get a manual on those? See, it'd have to be a 997.1 manual. And we're going to talk about manuals in a second with the 992. But it would have to be a manual. So I think, get a turbo, get a 0.1 because it's a Mezca. The 0.2 isn't, correct?
Yep.
And I think you have to get a manual. You have to get a manual. You can't get the PDK.
Hard to come by.
They're hard to come by though, aren't they? And when they do come up, and I know one came up, I think, in Classic Throttle Shop in Sydney, and it was expensive. It was a lot. In fact, I think it was more than the 991.1 Turbo S that I found online.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, funny that you say that too, because the dude, Marcus, who I dropped my exhaust tips off to do the ceramic coating, he saw my car and said, oh, really, really nice car. And we started talking about it. And he said, oh, I've been looking at 997.1 turbos. It's like, oh, okay, cool. So we just had a little chat about them, but the value of them, like pretty much every other 911 though, is kind of seems to be rising. But
I think if you're looking at a 997.1 turbo, you have to really consider what you're spending, because I know that they've come up. I think on car sales now, I looked a few weeks back, and I think they were around 200,000. 190, 200,000, 180, 200,000 people are asking for them in Australia. I think, it's a tough decision, but in some ways it's a very easy decision. If I had the choice and there was, just say that silver GT3 that's still for sale in Perth, Steve, that's on car sales, and it's 230 Australian dollars, 230,000 Australian dollars, I would pay the extra 30K and get the GT3. I think to me that's a no-brainer. I would take the GT3.
Turbo 200s, It's obviously a lot of money, but I think it's still pretty good buying. And like if the original question is what a 4S versus turbo,
Well, he was just
I'd be
saying the
going for the
base is
turbo.
good value. You know what I mean? And I think, he just said that, he's currently debating with myself on whether to get back into a base. He must have had a 911 before, in a base or a 4S 997.1 or a turbo. But, you can't beat the value of a 997 Carrera. You can still get a 997 Carrera for, reasonable money.
What are they now? Good one.
Depends what country you're in,
Not
I
as
guess.
good as yours. Yeah.
You know that...
Okay, go Australia.
It's really weird at the moment. If you do a search for base Carrera manual, hardly any come up. Any come up. And I think they're about 90, aren't they? They're about 90.
I haven't been keeping a track.
The one
of it.
that's gone up a lot is, and I was saying this to someone the other day, is the Carrera S. The Carrera S, I used to talk to a guy every now and again. I follow him on Instagram, who bought one at the same time, almost the same time I bought my 997, and he bought an S, and he paid $78,000 for it. A Carrera S now, 997, 2006, is about 110-ish, 110, 115.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So the prices have definitely gone up. But anyway, it's a tough one to answer, that one, because there's a lot in it. Like I said, if you're 997.1 turbo, Steve, I think we both agree if it's getting close to that GT3 price, you'd have to go the GT3. Even though they're both Metska, it's different. The GT3 is a GT3. I guess unless you want 4 seats, unless you want a 4-seat.
Yeah, like if the GT3, if you're excluding that because of practical reasons like no back seats or whatever else, I don't think it's as impractical as some people allude to. I do think that you could drive it every day, but then you might wind up driving the value out of it if you're going to do it. So
true.
yes, a turbo is a more everyday car. It's more GT than as in a touring kind of car, as opposed to a GT3 kind of thing. But yes, like in terms of the scale from base to S to GTS to turbo to GT3, like if I didn't have a GT3 and there was no such thing as a GT3 and I was looking at 997s, which model would I go for? Yeah, I think I'd probably be putting turbo. Or GTS at the top of the list.
It's a nice looking car. I have to say, though, I do like the 991.1 Turbo S. The guy in the building here has got a turbo. I thought it was a Turbo S in white, but it's down there now. Yeah, it's still here again. It's downstairs. And it just tempts me. I just look at it, and those rear flanks, the shape of it, and it seems to sit a lot lower as well than my 997. I stood next to it the other day, and it feels lower. I don't know why. It shouldn't be lower, but it feels lower. Maybe because it's wider. Maybe because it is wider.
Yeah, I was about to say the proportions look really wide. Like when you look at 992s, particularly, how kind of wide they look. Just because of the design, the sort of proportions of it. It looks super wide now.
Yeah, we're going to skip through these next two things because we want to get back onto the main topic, which is the manual 992, the article that we read, and we want to get onto the rally cars. Which is what this podcast is supposed to be about, and we're getting distracted. Stephen, who's on the owner stories coming up, the guy that owns the Boxster in Sydney, he gave me that site vinanalytics.com. I hadn't heard of it. It's probably really well known. He said you can put the VIN in. You can put the VIN in there, and you get all the details. I put my VIN in there. The only thing that came up said car not found or something, which worried me. But it only said 2006 Porsche 911. That's all it said. Did you try it?
Yeah, I've tried it before. Most recently, when my uncle bought his 991.2, which was a couple of months ago, I was asking him. Remember, you were asking me like, does it have rear steer and what options does it have on it? So I asked my uncle, and he said he didn't know. And then I said, can you go and give me the VIN, and I'll go and look it up. Or we were having the conversation about option codes on stickers in the owner's manuals.
Yeah.
And there was no such thing in so there's no sticker at all, not even in the owner's manual in his car. So then I went to try to look up his VIN on VIN Analytics, and it didn't come up. So I actually couldn't figure it out.
I know in the past I've tried another VIN searcher, and for some reason they seem to work. I think they're only for US cars.
US cars, yeah.
But maybe they work on newer cars. Steven said it worked for his though, because he gave it to me and he said it worked for his. So I'm not sure why, but your uncle's car's new and didn't work for his.
Yeah.
So
No, it didn't
that's
work.
weird. That's very weird.
It's hard actually because, I kept asking my uncle all these questions about the options, etc. And then he just said, "Oh, can you figure it out for me?" And I tried, but
you can.
the last resort is to basically just go to a Porsche dealership and ask them to look
Or
it up and tell you.
you could go to Autohouse and there's that guy in Porsche Sydney that'll do the search for you. And I think it was Tim. Tim at Autohouse did it for me. He called him and gave him my VIN, and then he gave me the printout. They sent him through the printout of all the things that were on my car, the whole history of the car.
Yeah. I know when I bought my car, I paid that silly thing on car sales where you can spend like $10 or $20 on the whatever it's called. I can't remember. I think
PPSR.
it's Carfax.
All right.
Something like that.
Right.
And it will kind of give you a report. So I kind of got that and it had all of my options listed, but the previous owner for me actually knew what they all were as well. So
Okay. Well, we tried it. Didn't work for me. There's a really good article. We're not going to talk about it. I'm just going to mention it. roadandtrack.com. Do a search for it. It's every generation of the 911. It's an interesting article, Steve. Did you get a chance to read it?
I didn't. Sorry.
Yeah, it goes through every generation. It has like a bit of information about it. It's quite good if you're coming into the brand and you're not sort of sure. There's not a lot of information in the article, but it's still good for a first 911 buyer, someone looking to get into Porsche. So that's worth a look. It's on Road and Track. It's a new article. It only just came out. But if you just search every generation of the 911 on Road and Track, the article will come up. It came up pretty much straight away for me when I searched for it. Manual 992. Now, we had this conversation before where Porsche in Australia was not allowing Carrera S people to order the manual. They're only going to,
which is weird.
Apparently, they're only going to allow the manual in the GTS. There's an article on Motor Trend. I don't know where I can't really put the links to these in the description of the podcast because they get lost and they get all out of whack on the description with Apple. Apple does a really weird formatting thing. But there's an article on Motor Trend, and it's about the 992 manual. If you just do a search for that, you can get it. They had pretty high praise. Did you get a chance to read the article, Steve, or not? Or just
I sort of skimmed it. Sorry, mate.
So I'm going to read a couple of things that I liked in the article, and I thought it was quite well written. And I think it just shows you that the manuals are not over. They're really not over, right? And especially this bit, he said, the result is that you never really think about driving the car. You think about, this is what he said about a manual transmission. He said, the result is that you never really think about driving the car. You think about how best to drive the car. Best line, best place to brake, best place to roll on the throttle, and so on. In a way, the driver is juggling the objects of the same weight. There is no managing the car's idiosyncrasies or foibles. There's just the road ahead and how to put it behind you. What's more, the car rewards your best efforts by improving the harder you drive it right up to its easily recognized limits. I thought that was quite interesting, that's a manual. And then he said, then he goes into the thing about 3 pedals or 3 letters, right? So whether PDK or the manual. When combined with Porsche's benchmark launch control system, PDK proves faster to any speed around any racetrack, right? So why is the row your own gearbox still available? And he goes, tradition, take rate, as in not many people take it up, I guess, take rate, is that what it means? And driver involvement.
Yeah, it is.
And driver involvement. I thought that was pretty interesting. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I thought that was pretty interesting. And then the article goes on to say about the speed, how that, what do they say? The transmission is obviously slower than a PDK. We all know that. I mean, but the manual, Steve and I are old school. We're manual enthusiasts. We're manual people. We like the manual.
Yep.
And I don't hate the PDK. I've had a few people on Owner's Stories who think that I'm a PDK hater. I don't hate the PDK. PDK, I like it, but I think I still prefer the manual because it's not always about the fastest 0 to 100. And in this article, Steve, they say that obviously the manual is slower than the PDK on the 0 to 60 miles per hour, 0 to 100 kilometers hour. Yep. But, it's not the most important. Yeah, but it's not the most important factor. Driver involvement is, you know what I mean? But basically it says you lose fractions of a second with each manual upshift. 0 to 60 miles an hour, which is 0 to 100, slips a full second behind to 4 seconds.
Yeah, and I reckon to add to that though, like that's, if you've heard Jason Camisa sort of talking about like the way that car journos actually kind of get numbers, like they actually kind of measure statistics. I think it's Road and Track are the kind of experts in it. Not Motor Trend, yeah, Road and Track. He sort of said that they're the ones that are very diligent in their sort of testing regime. You're dumping the clutch, which like no enthusiast would ever really do. Like, so I was going to sort of say, like, I'm sure that the actual kind of speed differential between a manual, car and a PDK car is actually even bigger than 1 second, because for you to kind of get a really good time out of a manual car, you've actually got to dump your clutch and you've got to shift super quick and all of that sort of stuff and balance your clutch and this and that. But who's ever really that rough with their car? Like, I know I kind of drive like grandma, but arguably with a PDK car, like all you have to do is stick it in launch control, or even if you don't want to stick it in launch control, you just mash the throttle and you're away.
I mean, people, true. I mean, people who have gone from manual. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Arguably, a manual car is by far slower, like even more than like any sort of statistics kind of say in real world. Like, when was the last time you kind of drag raced anyone on the street too? Like, you're never going to do that.
Yeah. But is it more...
like you might have a little bit of fun once you're in gear.
Yeah, but is it more engaging? See, this is the thing. Is it more engaging?
So it's not about the speed. Yeah, it's not about the speed. It's actually got nothing to do with sort of racing somebody else in the actual physical times. It's about the sensations.
Well, let's be honest. 0 to 100 or 0 to 60 times now are crazy on new cars. 3 seconds. You know what I mean? Like 3 seconds. 0 to 100 in 3 seconds. Like you don't really need to go that fast. You're not drag racing on the street.
Yeah, actually, it's an interesting point. Like, I wonder if you put like a V-box or a race box on your car, and you didn't in a manual car, and you didn't actually kind of launch it like, trying to get the best time, and you just sort of did like a quick kind of start. I wonder how quick that would actually be.
Yeah.
Like, my car's supposed to be low, I think 4.1 seconds, but I bet you it's nothing like the way I drive it. If I tried to do it enthusiastically, I bet you it's not even close.
Yeah, we should try that.
Like
we should do that.
5 seconds.
That's a good video. We should do a video on that when I'm back in Sydney. That is a good video. How much is a V-box?
No idea.
Okay.
I'm sure we can find somebody that's got one.
Yeah, borrow one. What was I going to say? For me, I'm still not convinced that I will get the same feeling. And like I said, I don't hate the PDK. I still don't, and I think it's very, it's up there with one of the best transmissions. I don't think for me I would get the same experience in the twisties on the mountain roads, going down, going up them in a PDK. I just don't, because I know how I like the gears through those roads, and I know how I like second and third gears so much in those roads. I just don't know if I'd get the same experience, Steve.
Yeah, I agree. You and I know we're both on the same page with that. I don't feel like I'm as in control in an automatic or even a PDK kind of car. It always feels like the car's kind of pushing.
Yeah.
So even when you're on the brakes, it doesn't feel like it's sort of slowing. And I know it's not exactly the same, but the Macan, my wife's Macan is a PDK. I used to kind of drive on the paddles a little bit, but you also, I don't know, there's something about it that makes you a bit complacent. So,
right.
And with the convenience comes some of the, you just sort of lose some of the involvement. That's the fun bit. I mean, it's probably part of the reason why I actually do find her car a little bit boring to drive.
Yeah,
I suppose.
But it makes sense on a Macan, though. You don't want a manual Macan,
Oh, absolutely.
The PDK makes sense on those sort of cars. It depends on the car.
Yeah.
People I've spoken about with PDKs love them. Kestas loves his PDK. James at Auto Amateur, went from manual 997 to 901 PDK. Loves it.
Yeah, and look, arguably, you do actually obviously have the same control. Like if you kind of go down a bit of road that you know and like, you obviously can choose exactly what gear you want to be in, and it will actually get to it quicker.
Yeah,
so
true.
It's not. When I sort of describe control, it's not that, because you kind of know that you can select exactly what you want. That's what's good about a PDK, because it doesn't do that weird thing of, being too slow to shift gears or choose the wrong gear for you. But even though, like, I occasionally attempt to heel and toe and all that type of thing, I can't do it like very well at all, but
The other
it's
thing,
just fun trying to do all that sort of stuff.
yeah, it is. And the other thing I am slightly concerned about is that a manual transmission, if you have to replace a clutch, you kind of know what it costs. What is the lifespan of a PDK transmission on a 911?
They're pretty durable, aren't they?
And what is the cost if you have to replace that PDK transmission? I think someone threw me a figure once through message and said it was 20 grand. And I don't know whether that was US. It probably was US. They said it was 20 grand.
I have no idea. I don't really know, but it'll obviously be high. But I think one good thing about them is that they're supposed to be very durable.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to do a quick shout out as well because I think it's a good video and the listeners should go and watch it. James at Porsche Platz, who's been on the owner stories. James was the guy from Melbourne, the owner from Melbourne, who's had a lot of Porsches over the years. I think he may have just bought another SC because I saw it on his Instagram where it was starting up. I think he bought an SC. I think in the stories he mentioned he wanted to get another SC. But he bought that 996 GT3 Cup car, Steve. You've watched the video.
Yeah.
He's finished the restoration on it. The car that he bought was an ex-Fitzgerald racing car, which is a well-known racing team in Australia. He bought the 996 Cup car. It was red. He found it at some dealer. I think he got it for a reasonably good price. And he's restored it. It's yellow again. It's as per it was. He's put a livery on it. And if you go to Outlaw Garage on YouTube, I think it's just Outlaw Garage. Yeah, Outlaw Garage on YouTube. And the video, one of the latest videos, I think it might be the second latest video now, it's called Porsche 996 GT3 Cup Car Experience. You see James, he goes out with the Outlaw Garage guy and he's done a track day in it already, and that was filmed on that track day. And it sounds pretty amazing, huh? It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, the engine sounds amazing. Like it does like proper kind of GT3 thing, but it's also the transmission whine. There's something about race cars where you can kind of hear the gears kind of whining in combination with the acceleration of the engine. In that vid, he hooked up a GoPro, like the classic thing of kind of sticking it on the back of the car. The exhaust noise from the back sounds amazing too. So have I ever been in a Cup car?
It'll be a great experience. James, if you're listening, when I come back to Australia, I have to come to Melbourne and go for if you still have it by then. I know you turn your cars over pretty quickly, but we would definitely be up for going out in that car, that's for sure. Hey, Steve.
Cool. Way cool. Very nice car.
All right. We've talked about safari cars on the podcast before. I don't really know what the difference between a safari car and a rally car is. Aren't they pretty much the same? I might sound like an idiot here, but are Porsche safari cars and rally cars almost the same?
Safari cars pumped up more for like literally the safari rally, the African safari.
So they're slightly different,
like Paris-Dakar.
I don't know what the nuance is, what the differences are. I don't know the fine points of it.
There's a lot more undulations and it's a lot rougher kind of thing in terms of the difference between those two motorsport events.
Do you want to start this one, Steve, based on the video you sent me?
Sorry, I've lost my...
The first video that Steve sent me, I'll let Steve get the video you sent me was that Evo vid from 2010. That one first. Because that one to me, I watched that.
Sorry, okay.
Yeah, we'll start with that one because I think if you didn't think you were interested in Porsche rally cars or Porsche rally, and this is not even, this is Chris Harris when he was with Evo back in 2010 with Francois Delacour. Delacour, yeah. And he gives Chris Harris a ride that basically he'll never forget. I think it said in the description, in the 997 Porsche 911 GT3 RS, it's not even a rally car, but he's a rally driver on Route Napoleon in France.
So he's obviously in his element. Yeah, he's just this kind of mad French driver. I don't know, like he's back in the day of kind of Colin McRae and Richard Burns and all those guys. I remember watching because I used to follow rally WRC religiously, and he used to race then. So I didn't realize too, like at some point in time, he's sort of like a bit of a Porsche sort of fanatic, and he was trying to kind of get, I think he wanted to run them, not in WRC, but like in sort of pretty high up competition, but he couldn't kind of get it in. So however it came about, Chris Harris got a ride in this GT3 RS with Francois Delacour, and Francois Delacour just is a maniac. And just the reactions on Chris Harris's face is hilarious.
But you know what I love about that video is Francois Delacour is in his 70s, right?
I don't think he's that old. No, he
He's
just
not
looks
70? 60s.
He looks old. No, I don't even think he'd be 60. I think he's just graying. That's
really?
all.
I thought he was older than that.
Yeah.
But it's the look on his face when he's in that car, when he starts driving. And I don't know what it is about race drivers or rally drivers or it's that look that they have, you know, where they're just so in the moment, you know, they're just so connected with the car. And that's what, if you haven't seen that video, go to Evo and look for that video because it really is a great video. Hey, Steve.
It's really funny. Yeah. It's funny, but like if you're a kind of Porsche guy, it's cool. And just sort of seeing the enthusiasm that he's got. Then he does like donuts at the end just for fun. And, you know, he's obviously kind of driving through his local, you know, probably where local roads that he kind of knows really well. And I think there's a nod somewhere where he sort of said that people around know what he's like kind of thing. But he's obviously driving like a maniac. But having said that, he's a, you know, ex-WRC kind of rally driver, so he certainly knows how to control a car.
Yeah, he's basically treating the GT3 RS like a rally car. He's basically like driving it. I mean, it makes you want to learn how to drive better. That's all I say when you see it. It's just amazing. These people are just so connected. They're just so connected. You see it in their eyes.
Yeah, I think also too, like, I don't know how in-depth we're kind of getting in terms of this topic. I know I'd sort of actually semi-suggested it too, but the sort of topic was kind of Porsche rally cars, but I've had the opportunity to kind of get a couple of rides in rally cars. Don't know, because I used to work on car accounts. And not saying that I know anything about it, but when you kind of watch like high level kind of motorsport as well, rally car drivers, just the skills are amazing to drive like that. The car control on loose surfaces. I mean, I know it's a skill unto its own, sort of driving on tarmac and asphalt on tracks and everything, but to kind of react and control your car so perfectly in rally driving is so amazing. So
yeah. So the car
when
when
you watch it on telly.
But the car you were in was the Autohouse car, right? Driven by who?
Well, I've actually had the thing that you're referring to is that Autohouse ran a car with Jeff David. Grant, the owner of Autohouse, actually has history in rallying. I think he used to work for Mitsubishi Rally Art at some point.
Right.
Back in the day. So he's a mad kind of rally guy. So he and Jeff David built and raced this is what I was looking for before. It was a 1979 11.
Yeah.
It's a 3-litre car that was built for the London to Sydney Marathon. They competed in this car, which I kind of helped actually do the livery for it, which was a lot of fun. The guys sort of were shaking the car down at one point in time, and they took it out to, where was that? Between Bathurst. It was just between Jenolan Caves and Bathurst. What is it? Oberon.
Oberon. Okay.
There's a sort of a track out at Oberon, which they obviously kind of do a little bit of testing at. And they very kindly invited me, and there were a few other sort of Autohouse people that kind of came out. And Jeff took us for a spin in his beastie kind of rally car, and it was like amazing. I just want
to tell the listeners, Steve has actually been very, very kind here, and he's got a video of this. I mean, it's old school. It's old sort of format, right? It's weird format, isn't it? But it's a great video.
Well, it's 3/4.
Yeah, it's 3/4. It's 3/4/3, and Steve's in the passenger seat. And I'm going to put that on Patreon for the members on Patreon. It's going to be a members only thing, so you have to be a member of PorscheCooled to see it. And I'm going to put that on when you're listening to this podcast. It'll be up there. So Steve said it's cool to put it up, so you'll see Steve in the passenger seat and the experience. It's a pretty cool video as well. But how did it feel, Steve? Though? Were you scared?
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. Okay, so you just go to your stereotypical kind of thing of what you think a ride in a rally car would be, and like on gravel with trees either side of you, no guardrails, like the classic handbrake through the like the fence and all of that sort of stuff. Like this thing at Oberon was exactly like that. And you kind of think, like, I think in your brain before you ever do it, you would kind of go, wow, this is going to be kind of a bit scary. But even in the passenger seat, you can feel the car gripping. You can actually feel the tires biting into the gravel. And you can kind of tell that everything that Jeff was doing at the time was in complete control. Like there wasn't, even though like the car is sliding, it's controlled sliding. So he knew exactly where the car was being positioned and all of that sort of stuff. And you kind of get a sense of that even in the passenger seat. So super cool. Like I've been lucky enough, like I said, because I've worked on car accounts, I've been on I've been in a Jag S Type R around Eastern Creek with Mark
Which
Webber.
one? Oh, that was Mark Webber, was it? That would have been a great experience.
Yeah, that was cool. But see, like I was going to say, the difference between tarmac and rally. So I've had a few kind of, hot laps and things like that. And I've been in, there's a rally car driver called Chris Evans who took me around in a Golf rally car as well. That was amazing. And by far, like going for a ride in a rally car is so much more fun, just because of that sensation that I was talking about. And that's sort of why I kind of go, oh man, like so much respect for rally car drivers. So yeah, like, and look, the other sort of bring it back to Porsches is like, when you think rally car, I think you kind of classically think of, four-wheel drive, turbocharged, whatever. Like these days, I don't know what sort of engine capacity it is, but, like my fondest memories are WRX kind of days and, Mitsubishi Evo days with Tommy Mäkinen and all that sort of stuff, like Colin McRae. You don't naturally think of Porsche when you think of rally.
No, you don't.
Because it's like, it's a rear-wheel drive, flat, 3+ liter engine. But apparently, I remember talking to Jeff David about it. Like, apparently, it's the perfect car to go rallying in because all the weight's at the back, so all that traction that you kind of get, all the reasons that you enjoy driving on tarmac applies to rally, and it's even more. It's even more to your benefit to have those sorts of traits in a rally car. So, and then you kind of go, oh man, like it's an old rally car, like the one that he was campaigning was a 1970s kind of thing, and he's flying around the forest in an old 911.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I remember when I went to a rally when I lived in Wyong. Near Wyong, there's a forest called the Wadigan Forest, and they had, and I'm not sure what the name of this rally was. They had a rally that used to go through the Wadigan Forest, and I went to it one year. I don't know how old I was. I don't even know how I got there. I don't even know how it happened. And I remember being on the side. What sort of cars
were flying around?
Yeah, being on the side. And this is a long time ago. So there's not much, there's no protection, there's no safety, right? And the cars come so close to you. Like it's the experience of watching that. I think as a motorsport, and I'm a Formula One fan, I'm a big Formula One fan, but I don't think you can get any closer to the action than rally. It's just, and I don't know if they've changed it now.
Dangerous too,
and it's dangerous. And you're so close. You're so close. And it was just, I don't know, it was something that's very memorable, something I always remember. It was a great experience going to that.
It's hard as a spectator though, isn't it? Because you've got to trek through the forest and then you've really only got to stand in one point. So unlike a circuit, they don't kind of keep looping back around. You only get to see the car or the different competitors once sort of thing. But amazing good sound too because of the exhaust and all that sort of thing. So look, I had a little dig around in terms of like the history of like really successful kind of rally cars.
Okay.
With 911s, like to kind of go back to that point. And I think it was the point that
Jackie X, right? Jackie X was one of the main ones, right?
Oh, yeah, I think he was. And Vic Elford as well, like won Monte Carlo in 1968.
Yep.
Driving a 2-liter 911S. Then like the 959s were kind of campaigned in the Paris-Dakar. They kind of won in 1986. I've kind of gotten the notes here.
Those old photos of the 959 in the Dakar, there's photos that are going around Instagram. I think I saw someone. Those photos are just so cool. They're just so cool.
Because I like as I sort of tried to make excuses, I had a really massive day work-wise, so I didn't have much time to prep for this, as you can tell, because I'm completely all over the shop.
But I didn't realize. I saw in your notes. I didn't realize SCs were the.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, nor did I. I keep talking like I'm a huge rally fan, but I'm talking Colin McRae days. Like obviously SCs were well before that. I'm taking a wild guess. Like when was this? 80,
SC's a bit 80s, late 70s, 80s for sure.
78. So what would they kind of have competed against? That'd still be like minis and escorts and stuff like that.
I don't know. Audi? Was Audi 80s? Or was it escorts?
Quattro. There's Quattro. Quattro's probably
80.
a little bit after that, isn't it?
A little bit after 80s.
Yeah.
81, 82 maybe.
Yeah, so I didn't realize that SCs had this massive heritage in sort of winning like Monte Carlo and stuff like that as well. So yeah, really interesting.
There's a lot of history. I mean, there's that. I've seen it before, and I think I sent you the link. On YouTube, the Porsche Top 5, where Walter Roll goes through his top 5 rally cars. Did you see that? Did you get a chance to look at it?
I didn't, but I can keep talking.
It's interesting. I mean, they're not all 911s. He has the number 5 is the 911 Paris Dakar, which was the 959.
Yep.
959 Paris Dakar. The 953, as this car is also known, took part in the 1984 Paris Dakar Rally. So that was his number 5. Yeah. Number 4 was actually the Cayenne S Trans-Siberia.
That Trans-Siberia with the orange decals.
Yeah. That limited edition one that they're selling, which you can buy, has gone up in value like a hell of a lot. It's very expensive to buy now. That was 2008. Yep. Number 3, not a 911 again. He has a 924 Carrera GTS.
Yep.
And that was 1981 German Rally Championship. And then SC, like you said, number 2, 911 SC Safari, which is a cool looking one. Which is
another Safari car though, yeah.
Yeah, 78. So the SC, I don't know why I always thought the SC was only 80s car, but it came out in the late 70s, right? So SC 1978 took part in the Safari Rally in Kenya.
So is that the car that then would be sort of like the inspiration for like Lee Keen's creations and
I think
like
so.
Matt Farah's car and stuff? That's the car that sort of they're all referencing
it is,
really then, isn't it?
But he tends to use the model after the SC.
Yeah, but that's sort of where this kind of whole Safari thing comes from. Because even though that's a rally car, that's a more pumped up kind of Safari type thing as opposed to...
Just so the listeners know, I'm looking at this on Newsroom at Porsche Newsroom, and if you do a search, there's an article and it's got Walter Roll and his top 5 rally cars. I think there's a video on YouTube as well, but if you just go to Porsche Newsroom, you'll see it. But that number 2, Steve, the 911 SC Safari, that looks like kind of Lee Keenish, doesn't it, the way they've styled it?
Yeah, it does.
You can see what his inspiration is. And then number 1, which I found really interesting, which is Walter Roll's pick, is the 911 GT3 996.
Yep. And I don't find that as surprising because having a... Well, no, just because like having a 997 GT3, when you start looking it up on YouTube, 996 and 997 GT3 rally cars like come up all the time. And then when you start watching them, you just sort of see these insane kind of GT3s kind of going around. A lot of them are sort of probably more like tarmac rallies as opposed to kind of gravel.
Oh, okay.
But when you start researching exhaust particularly, that's when you start kind of arriving at all of these kind of mad kind of rally videos, because the exhaust, I don't know.
Why is there a special rally exhaust?
I don't know if it's special. Maybe it's less restricted or something. I don't know. Because maybe like I'm taking a guess that track days, like all tracks kind of have noise regulations, but maybe if you're out driving in the forest or on kind of tarmac, sort of sealed off tarmac roads, they don't put noise restrictions on, so you can pretty much run a straight through.
Right. And then the Type 7 film, which I hadn't actually watched, and you sent me the link, and I have actually seen I've seen little clips of it on YouTube, and I knew it was Nat 7, and it was done Type 7, and it was done by the Type 7 team, Gushu and Nat Twiss and the guy from Australia, the graphic guy. They were all involved in it.
It's just a nice sort of film piece, because they don't normally do film, do they? Type 7.
No, they don't.
They're kind of getting into it.
And the comments in the YouTube video. This is it's called Shakedown, a Type 7 film. If you haven't already seen it, there have been little clips on Instagram. Like I said, it's on YouTube, isn't it, Steve? Yeah, YouTube.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a Type 7 production with rally cars, and the rally cars are the drivers are Richard Tuttle and Dickie Meaden.
Yep.
They had the name of the owner
awesome.
of the they had the name of the owner of the car. I can't remember. It was like RP or PJ or something like that. I can't remember. And it's shot in the UK in a place called the Colworth Grounds. I'm not sure where that is, but it's a great place to shoot it. And some of those shots, Steve, some of those drone footage and the shots are just
it's really beautifully shot.
Just a really beautiful film. Like, honestly, you just watch it. Even the music, normally the music really annoys me on these things because they always pick the wrong music, but even the music seems to work really well with it. It's hands up in the air for Type 7 because they've done a really great job on this.
It's very nicely done. But
Mr. Gushu has done a great job.
I think those cars too, like, may have popped up because Richard Tuttle got so much PR from doing that Singer ACS thing. I think I have a feeling that maybe the car that was in the background, that features in this Type 7 film, was always in the background in that ACS, in some of that PR
but there's
stuff.
Two cars, isn't there? There's two cars in this film.
Yeah. One of them,
The first one,
cool.
I like that scene where the first one where he's driving it, Tuttle's driving it. He's very casual and, like he's just such a, talking about a driver, he's such a great driver. And then when they take the tires off and how trash those tires are and he's changing the tires on the side of the road and then the other car comes past. That scene is a really good transition, don't you think?
Yeah, it's a very cool video, just fun to watch kind of thing. So check it out.
It kind of makes you, after watching the Type 7 one, I have to say, it kind of makes you want to get a rally car.
Yeah, it's funny that. I wonder how you get into it. Because
it makes you want to get one.
I was referring to.
Yeah, and do these rallies, these amateur rallies or something even.
Yeah, and that's where you seriously got to get like an old beta kind of thing to figure out how to do it. Because I can imagine that the car would sort of seriously kind of get trashed. Like, I remember Chris Harris was sort of trying to come to grips with rally car driving back when he was, I think, Evo days, and I think he bought was it an old E30 M3? If it wasn't an M3, it was sort of being rebuilt to be like an M3, but he was kind of going to campaign that in rallies. But I remember, I think he had a stack like in the first race or the second race or something like that. But it's funny, like, I think some of the really good motoring journos, like him and Henry Catchpole, are sort of quite good on dirt. So I think it obviously goes to kind of building your skill if you can figure out how to drive on a loose surface.
I mean, it'd be a great thing to do. If we did it, we'd have to use your money.
That means that there's zero money.
This is the general trend of making sure the listeners know that Steve is rich.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
What else, mate? I think that's it.
I think that's it.
That was a good one. I enjoyed that. It was a good chat. It really does make you think about rally cars, though, and Porsche rally cars, and you understand the weight, the weight in the back, and when you see that Type 7 film and you see Tuttle driving that car and Meaden driving those cars, it's, and then the French, Francois Delacour driving the GT3 RS, it really makes you want to improve your skills, doesn't it? It really makes you want to get better.
Yeah, I reckon all motorsports like that, because even whenever we were talking about track stuff or watching James Porsche Platz and the Cup car and all of that, my mate sort of now with his GT3, he's trying to figure out some driver training. It makes you really itchy to kind of learn and to kind of go and do it. But
even watching James, though, he's been doing it for years. You know what I mean? He's been doing track days and doing that for years, and you can tell, That's what, it takes a long time to get to the level.
He wasn't flogging the car at all.
No,
he wasn't flogging the car at all. But I think that's also the thing, though, because if you're a good driver, it sort of looks quite smooth and seamless. Like when I, not meaning to sound like I was name dropping, but when I was going for that hot lap with Mark Webber in the S-Type R around Eastern Creek, I don't know I don't think he was sort of being a tool, but I'm pretty sure he had one elbow up on the kind of, on the window, and he's hooning around in this V8, supercharged V8, and he's talking to me while he's kind of doing it. And it all seems like, you're just going for a drive to the shops kind of thing. So obviously the mark of a good driver is sort of being so completely in control and everything seems really smooth and seamless rather than really frantic.
Yeah. And watching James in that video, it looks that way. You know what I mean? It's all very,
Yeah. Seems quite slow, doesn't it? But I'm
But
sure he's going
but
quite.
it's not that slow, yeah. And I mean, the Outlaw
Yeah,
Garage
yeah.
guy, sorry, I can't remember his name. The Outlaw Garage guy is like, you can see he really enjoyed it. You know what I mean? He really did enjoy it. Great experience.
Yeah, even if anyone does go and look at that little video of my ride in that rally car, the Patreon guys, I think there's some speed measurements on the video as well. It goes
Yeah.
I think it winds up going pretty quick because there's no real straights in that as well.
Yeah, no, he's going
I
fast.
don't remember exactly
man.
how quick it goes.
He's going fast.
It's pretty quick.
Yeah. No, I'll put that up, and like I said, when this podcast goes up, they'll get to watch that.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thanks, Steve.
Sorry, mate. I know I was all over the shop, so
No,
apologies.
it's good. Not over the shop. Don't apologize. Yeah. Don't apologize. It's good. All right. That's it. Nothing else. We're done.
Take care, mate.
Another week.
Yeah.
Another podcast.
Talk to you.
Episode 72, Steve. Episode 72. We're getting to 80. We're going to be at 80 soon. We're going to be at 100.
Wasn't as special as number 70, mate. Wasn't
Number
like a special
70
edition.
was special. 70th. Because it's 70th Porsche's anniversary in 2018, wasn't it? 70th.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everyone, for listening to the PorscheCooled Podcast. That was Steve coming all the way through Zoom. The wonders of Zoom. I love Zoom. From Sydney. And I'm back in Bahrain. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.